What you see in a lot of books written about Afghanistan, they say these are patchwork of tribes, a network of tribes who have never been loyal to a state system. They are more loyal to their ethnicity, to their kin, to their village, to their community. And the West has gone there to instill a, an idea and a concept which is totally alien to the Afghan roots, to the Afghan culture, and to the Afghan history. And that is the idea of a central state, democracy, rule of law, to a nation, to a country which has never been used to it. This is completely wrong. We have been used to rule of law. We have been very loyal to the state system in Afghanistan. But all of that came to an abrupt end, and I want to briefly touch upon the reasons why the Afghan loyalty to the state system came to an abrupt end. One superpower invaded my country in 80s, Soviets. Another superpower spent billions of dollars through NGOs, non-government organizations, to shatter our loyalty to the state structure. NGOs that were active in Afghanistan during the 80s and 90s, their purpose was not to strengthen the loyalty of the Afghan people to the system. Their entire aim was to break our psyche and say, the state is your enemy, destroy it. So with those billions of dollars and very sophisticated weapons, we destroyed a state system in Afghanistan because it was regarded communist, godless, infidel, oppressor, etc., etc. And we destroyed it in alliance with the West. When the objectives were achieved, i.e. in 91, 92, we were abandoned. Then there came the period of abandonment. From 92 to 2001, Afghanistan was abandoned by its powerful allies of 80s, United States, Arabia, Europe, China. And in that period, we sunk into a very deep crisis where new powers in the region wanted to manipulate Afghanistan. Pakistan obviously benefiting from extremism and the idea of manipulating Afghanistan through jihad, wanted to dominate Afghanistan, and we were facing the phenomena of the Taliban. Regardless of how much effort we put to decouple the Taliban from Daesh and ISIS or Al-Qaeda or Lashkar-e-Taiba or other outfits which want to destroy modern state systems, they come from the same ideological gene pool. They are the same. United States 15 years effort to decouple the Taliban from Al-Qaeda has failed. They are Al-Qaeda. And continuation of this policy will be like deceiving ourselves that they are not Al-Qaeda. They are Al-Qaeda, and in reality they are having nothing to differentiate them from Daesh. I'm time and again asked why I downplay the Daesh in my country. Daesh, ISIS does not exist in Afghanistan. It is Taliban. And there is nothing good about the Taliban to differentiate them from Daesh, from ISIS. They do beheadings. They push women out of the society. They want to dominate. They represent militant extremism. They want to capture power by violent means. Their interpretation of Sharia is very unique. They have no literature in which you see coexistence or respect for pluralism or other faiths, none. So why we should distinguish Daesh from the Taliban? They are the same. One of the most important and central question, an issue in my country, is the issue of legitimacy. The Afghan National Security Forces they enjoy massive pan-Afghan support and legitimacy. Despite the fact that we suffered many thousands killed, the society is not questioning why they are fighting. The society is standing behind them, providing moral support. I have in 2015 attended dozens of funerals myself. In each funeral, however tragic it may be, the community has risen again and said, we should not let those dark forces too win. Can you imagine a country in war for such a long is still suffering 8,000 killed, but is still supporting the legitimate system? So one should question what is holding Afghanistan together. What is holding Afghanistan together is a very strong sense of nationhood. Yes, a lot of people have analyzed this along ethnic lines, along linguistic lines, along provincial lines, along subnational lines, but I see very little literature analyzing Afghanistan as a nation with a very strong sense of nationhood. So nationalism in my country, unlike what is believed in the outside world, is a very strong element. I could go down into details of how strong this factor is. When last year the Badakhshan province in the far northeast was hit, the first aid convoy which came to the affected people of Badakhshan was from Kandahar, from the very in south. Whereas when you read in the outside literature that Kandahar should have no sympathy for Badakhshan, in reality that is not the case. For 4 years I was invited to various conferences in a lot of countries. The question was, what will happen in 2014? And now I get a lot of invitation and people ask me, what will happen after 2016? So my answer is simple. In materialistic terms, let us put it this way. If our friends, donors, and allies are gripped by a fatigue, this is too long, too expensive, let's go out. What will be the consequences and the cost of abandoning Afghanistan again? They can do the calculations. It's a very strategic country. And what is the cost of engagement with Afghanistan? The cost of engagement with Afghanistan is less than $10 billion a year. The cost of disengagement with Afghanistan, I would think easily it would go many, many times more than the cost of engagement. There are two Afghanistans. The good Afghanistan, which is the biggest Afghanistan, has been a good partner with the international community. And there is an ugly Afghanistan, where Pakistan has helped the Taliban to dominate. That is opposing the world order. That is anti-West. That is anti-pluralism. That is anti-democracy. And the good Afghanistan will prevail. So you better remain glued to the good Afghanistan and don't get disappointed. So my prognosis and diagnosis is that even if in 2016, end of 2016, all foreign troops leave the country, provided they do respect their financial commitment, they do not hitch on the survival of the Afghan state, we will prevail. It is not Afghanistan of 90s to be taken by a violent extremist group. The good Afghanistan, where there is a space for women to be active in politics, education, civil society, etc., etc. The youth are very active. There is thirst for education. There is really a strong no to extremism. There is no way a small group, very violent, will take over and the destiny of millions will be shaped by the Taliban. India enjoys massive support in my country for the following reasons. A, India has no Indian agenda in Afghanistan. Post 9/11, when Afghans requested India to give us scholarships, they did. When we asked India to give us roads, they did. When we asked India to help us in the energy sector, India did. India has not hurt us. And as a nation, that has created a lot of goodwill and sympathy. To India in Afghanistan, if it has influenced Afghanistan, it has influenced Afghanistan through its soft power. Entertainment, education, medicine, media, training of the Afghan civil service, etc., etc. So now Pakistanis say, why you allow India to influence Afghanistan? We said, Amitabh Bachchan doesn't take a visa to come to Kabul. He's on our screens. Right? Salma Dam. We needed it. Zaranj Dilaram Road, which provides us an alternative connectivity with the rest of the world. Electricity. Several times in the past 40 years, Pakistan has tried to destroy the only big electricity dam we have in the east of Kabul, to blow it up. So, although their reasoning is that India is having massive influence, so therefore Pakistan has to have a proxy to counter it, this is a very wrong argument. India works with a nation. India works with a state. Pakistan counters it by supporting a terrorist group.
I was at this international conference on Afghanistan a couple of years ago, and the same question came up. What is, everybody was talking about the end games. What is the end game? And the Americans said it, and the others who said it. And when they asked me, what is India's end game in Afghanistan? I said, it doesn't make sense. The question doesn't make sense. There is no end game for us. Afghanistan has existed for a long time and will continue to exist. We have existed for a long time, will continue to exist. There is no such thing as an end game. There are ongoing international relations. So we refuse to think in terms of end games. We refuse to think in terms of a game which is being played and then it will end and we can withdraw and all that. The process of engagement is ongoing. It's not going to end because of some reason. That's a little statement I wanted to make, that India's engagement with Afghanistan is not periodic, it is not episodic, it is not transactional. It is an ongoing civilizational and nation-state to nation-state kind of relationship. What we are going to do today is we've sort of reinvented the format of our conversations. And if you see two seats which are vacant here, are for you to come and sit and have conversations with him. So instead of having old panel discussions where we predetermined who's going to sit, we will invite people from the audience to come, because all of you are experts and insightful people in your own right. And what we found in our previous engagements is that a lot of the talent in the audience just gets missed out because the panelists are discussing.
You also run an organization that works at the grassroots with the youth, especially in de-radicalizing them or empowering them. As a country that's gone through so many political, cultural, sociological shifts from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, what are some of the challenges that you face in running this organization? And what do you think that the youth, the youngsters, people who are now in their mid-20s or early 30s, what do they aspire towards?
One of the big issues with the youth is in Afghanistan, they see the other world either on their screens or on their mobile phone or in the magazine or in the newspaper, and they wake up to the reality of life, and the reality of life is Afghanistan is a rugged, cold country with less job opportunities and a lot of security concerns and problems, and they have a question. Who should we go to for a solution? God, government, political parties, Where is the solution? And it's a very legitimate question. They are talented, they are educated, and they know the rest of the world is progressing, and they see their part of the world is stagnating, and it's stuck in violence and fighting, etc., etc. We provide them with rational answers. We provide them with logical answers. An answer which further strengthens their sense of nationalism, sense of belongingness to the soil. We also go through examples of other nations. How have they built themselves? We use the example of India. India's growth rate has never been, throughout its history, 9% every year. India has gone through periods of starvation, of hunger, of fighting, of this and that, and also countries in our neighborhood. So we encourage them to remain patriotic. We expect them to be ready for sacrifice. That's one. We are countered by other organizations who are radical. They receive foreign funding, and their interest is to tell the youth that the reason you are suffering is because you are not worshipping the God enough, you are not Muslim enough, you are not pious enough. And there is a radicalization trend. So we are countering that, and we counter it by very solid examples. And I call my experience of dealing with generals from the neighboring countries who in the evening come out drunk after having several shots of whiskey, and in the morning lecture me on how Taliban are good people and good Muslims. So I tell them, this is deception. Don't fall into that trap. It's all about power politics. It's about economy, and the religion is being used by them as a tool. They themselves don't believe in it. So that's two. Three, we do not just create a sense of hope talking about hope. We encourage them to do small things. And many thousand people do small things, then it becomes a wave for change. Have we succeeded? Yes. When that lady was lynched in Kabul and a car was driven over her in one of the shrines, we mobilized the city for justice, and we were very successful. Remember, for 3 days our government was silent because they didn't know whose side to take. It was the street power of the Afghan youth, based on the type of work I explained to you, that they came out and they asked for justice, and justice was, to some degree, given. There are a lot of other examples of this nature. So we do three distinct things in the areas we work. We have de-radicalization programs, in which standing against Taliban is one of our programs. We do youth empowerment, and we stand against corruption. Afghanistan today, by virtue of these type of activities done by me and many thousands like me, is a different country. It's a much wiser country, but it goes through some of its most hard and turbulent junctions of history. We have exodus of the youth too. We have around 130,000 Afghans, mostly educated, who left the country in 2013 and 15. They mainly went to Europe, Germany, Sweden, and other countries, and they sought asylum. But that should not be a sign of Afghans losing hope in their country. I want to repeat, we have been under enormous stress for 40 years. But still, there is a country called Afghanistan. But still, there is a government called Government of Afghanistan. And still, thousands sacrifice their lives to protect those values. So what you see as exodus of youth is a drop from a river. And that doesn't indicate that the country is falling apart. Thank you.
You briefly talked about economic development and the importance of that. So, a big part of, an important part of economic development and strategic autonomy of Afghanistan is the connectivity aspect. But Pakistan is still Afghanistan's biggest trade partner, and there's dependence on the Karachi port as well. So, how is the Chabahar port or the other connectivity projects being seen in Afghanistan? And is there a push to decrease this sort of dependence on the Karachi port, etc., and Pakistan in general for trade?
We were in early September. I was part of a track 2 conference in Istanbul, where some very senior former Pakistan officials were there. An ISI chief, a former foreign secretary, 2, 3 ambassadors. The idea was, let's start from soft issues. Let's discuss transit as a soft issue. Let's just put trade on the table as a soft issue and see if we can agree on soft issues, then marginalize the hard issues, which are, as you said, the line or the border and the Taliban and this and that. As the Pakistan side ran out of patience, they bluntly said to all of us, and Mr. Army was sitting next to me, they said, if we do not solve our problems with India, which I reckon they will never solve their problem with India, we will not give Afghanistan access to Indian markets. Simple. We will not give Afghanistan full access to Karachi port. Simple. And I'm glad they said that. I'm glad they made the picture very clear. So they are making Afghanistan to realize that we on our east have a very unreliable partner who are only at best of circumstances ready to give us limited access. Well, Afghanistan is portrayed as a dependent, poor country. If Karachi is blocked, then it starves to death. That is old Afghanistan. That's when there was Soviet Union. Afghanistan has more access to the outside world than Pakistan. Pakistan has 3 neighbors, India, Iran, China. With China, the land access is very complicated through Karakoram highways. Karachi, at times of war, God forbid, is a very vulnerable port. And they will be left to Iran. We have Iran, we have 3 northern neighbors. It's up to us how we look at our country. And I like to borrow that phrase, whoever used it in Afghan politics. They said, don't call us landlocked, we are land-linked country. We are linked to several countries. And it is for us to break that psychological cage and no longer see the Karachi as the only port, either giving us access or not giving us access. Now, if Pakistan one day joins all of us, promoting the agenda of trade, of harmony, of cultural interaction, of friendship, and leave aside the agenda of militancy and extremism, this region has a massive potential to become a dream region, But are we anywhere closer to our utopia and dream? No. I think the reality is our access to India and India's access to us for strategic purposes has to be either through Central Asia or through Iran.
Follow-up question. This is about the fate of the Taliban. Mansoor Akhtar's death, or if at all we're lucky, would that see some sort of crumbling of the Taliban? I know that there are issues between the Ishaqzai tribe and the Hotak tribe, or Ishaqzai, and there is definitely signs that we're seeing that the ISI is getting a little desperate They're trying to mainstream the Taliban, and I think the Americans have fallen in line there. Is that process really going to, is there an attempt really in that sense? Are we seeing the right, am I seeing the right picture here?
Well, you say the ISI is disparate. They always have been disparate for one reason or another reason, to catch up with you or to put pressure on us or something. When well, let me tell you first how Mullah Omar's death was communicated to us. The president of Afghanistan did a very smart thing. He agreed to the first round of talks and sent a delegation to Murray. The Afghan delegation detected in Murray in Islamabad that the strategic frame of talks was not in the hands of the negotiators. And they were, talking to sort of robots. They were not the ones who have created the agenda, and they don't know what to talk about. So when this delegation returned back home, President Ashraf Ghani said to the Pakistanis, I will send my delegation for second round, but I have to ascertain myself. I have to make sure that I talk to the real Taliban. That it's not another shopkeeper or it's not another potato seller. The joke was that the real Mullah Omar was sometimes going shop to shop saying, I'm Mullah Omar, and nobody believed him. That was the joke. So he said, unless I have an evidence that I am talking to the real Taliban, I will not send my delegation for second round. And he insisted on his stand, and it was a very principled and good stand. And Pakistan army told him Mullah Omar died 2 years ago. So all these Eid greetings, Mubarakbad, and everything was actually from a grave. But they said, Mr. President, keep it to yourself. If you want the talks to continue, just keep it to yourself. Basically, they asked the head of an state to lie to his people. Basically, they asked our president to tell his people that I am talking to Mullah Omar. President Ghani shared this information with his security team, and his security team shared it with some of us shared it with the world, and now the ISI is very angry. They said, we told you this in confidence. And I say, look at it this way. If you learn about death of Mullah Fazlullah, do you receive it as a national celebration or a national secret? So you want us to treat the death of a mass murderer of our nation as a secret. It is as if Obama killed bin Laden in Abbottabad, but yet he told the Americans, no, he's alive, I have not killed him. We will continue to interact with him. This is a joke. So then came Mansour. Remember, Mullah Omar's rise was in a context. Afghanistan had a weak government. Parts of the country was ruled by factions, and these factions were not providing any services, etc., etc. There was a reason for Mullah Omar to rise, and he did create a mechanism which gave him legitimacy as the Taliban leader. This is when in Kandahar he put the cloak of our Prophet, peace be upon him, and he displayed it and he touched it, which for us is very sacred. And some people called him Amirul Mu'mineen. Post Mullah Omar's death, again, President Ashraf Ghani made it very clear that he will not recognize Amirul Mu'mineen too. No. That is the stand of Afghanistan. That we do not recognize a title, someone called Amirul Mu'mineen. So this guy got his legitimacy from a recorded message. He has put a recorder in front of himself, and if you listen to it, it is available. It is so clear that the message is recorded in a safe house. You can hear the voice of children. A cat enters the room, and there's, the noise of for a prayer, which means he's in some street, he's not in a big rally and show off the Taliban. And he says, I am Amirul Mu'minin because I will kill as Mullah Omar was killed. No new message. I will retain that brand. Then it became a matter of ridicule as this message was given to the media. Like, we do not see any guy, standing up, giving you ovation that you have now announced yourself Amirul Mu'minin. We only hear cuts going around. How many people were in that gathering that you declared yourself as the Amirul Mu'minin? That message really became a source of ridicule. Then they organized a gathering for him. They organized a gathering for him in Kachalak village outside Quetta, in which they brought either hundreds of the Taliban or thousands of the Taliban. It should not be a question for you why there are so many Taliban in Pakistan, because it produces Taliban. It's a and that gathering was filmed by Americans. Now I want to quote a Pakistani interlocutor of mine from yesterday's meeting. He said the Americans came to Nawaz Sharif and said, push this guy, the new leader, to talk peace. And as Nawaz Sharif wanted to go into this typical literature of denial, Susan Rice put that photograph in front of him and said, this is where he was having a rally. Not inside Afghanistan, but if Quetta is part of Pakistan, the rally was in Quetta. So now the Pakistanis have this thorny hot fish. They can't swallow him and they can't give it to us. The killing of Mullah Mansour, unlike Mullah Omar, which the Pakistanis had kept him as a myth, in a mythical place, with a mythical hand doing all the operations. This man is earthly. He has been to Germany, he has been to Prague, he has businesses in Karachi, and he is very greedy, and etc., etc. And he has been recently trying to micromanage. So therefore he ventures out into one of these meetings. After this, I don't claim my information is accurate, that he has been killed or wounded. If he is killed, he is a good Taliban. If he is wounded, he is a moderate one. So in either case, we don't have a loss here. What will be the impact? Now, will the other guy, the third Amirul Mu'minin, have few cuts in his inauguration ceremony, or he will have a big gathering, or he will have a shura? At the end of the day, what you are seeing, the mask of denial completely falling off the face of Islam. It is so naked now. They are with terror. They are with the Taliban. And we have to remind our American friends and allies. You can give any title to this process: reconciliation, resettlement, pacification, harmony, you name it. But at the end of the day, remember, you are basically showing tolerance toward ISI, who have killed 3,000 American men and women in uniform in Afghanistan, and who have been the reason for billions of dollars of your taxpayers' money wasted. So that is the reality. So that the incarnation or inauguration of the third Amirul Mu'minin in a row will be very difficult for Pakistan. It will weaken the Taliban, absolutely. It will weaken Pakistan's position in the region, in the world, and I'm very happy this has happened. As I said, I hope it's true. A Western journalist told me, "Look, Amrullah, if we both sit on a veranda and look down a road, the traffic, normal traffic, is not the news. But if there is a crash of cars, it's the news. So my message to India is look at the traffic. Don't be obsessed with that one accident. That one accident is the work of the Taliban. The normal traffic is our work. And it is flowing. Thank you.